The Middle East has been an area of extreme interest for me throughout my education, and getting to learn all about it in depth this semester was an awesome experience. The three themes that captured my interest the most were policy, war, and religion. All I knew about Iran's nuclear policy with the U.S. before this class was the fact that it was bad, and the fact that a lot of people were worried about Iran developing a nuclear weapon that they could use on some Western country. While studying nuclear policy during the briefing the President on the Middle East project, I learned that in recent years Iran has vowed to stop the 20% per year uranium enrichment program and not to enrich uranium by more than 5% in this period. This is a huge deal because it would make Iran's nuclear program depreciate, which would lead to stop their aggressive foreign policy. Also, Iran has a large terrorism rate, and groups like Hamas and Hezbollah would have less access to nuclear weapons. Lastly, by disarming their nuclear program, Iran poses less of a threat for other countries in military terms. This changed my idea because now instead of thinking about Iran's nuclear policy as one for war, I now think of it for energy. I changed my thinking from weapons to energy, which will help me outside to be less biased in the news I hear. Before I came into this class, I actually knew a lot about Israeli policy because I grew up Jewish, and I went to Hebrew school until I was 16, so we had studied this a lot. I knew that we were the first allies and the first people to agree to the establishment of Israel as a state in the UN. One thing I didn't know was that the United States gives most of its defense mechanisms gives Israel most of its defensive mechanisms, such as weapons and technology. Also, I did not know that the U.S. vowed to help Israel if any conflict that they get. They'll give them money and diplomatic support to help resolve the conflict. This can be seen in terrorist attacks on Israel when we are the first ones to jump in and help them. Also, when they were at war with Egypt, after Egypt attacked them, we were the first ones to help Israel and fund the war. A good example of helping diplomatically, which is what I think we should be doing, is helping make a peace pact with Egypt. Bill Clinton helped arrange a meeting and diplomatic resolution to the fighting. Learning this helped me to change my opinion of how the U.S. and Israel interact. I think that we should not automatically be giving money away the second Israel gets attacked because I think we need to focus more internally when our economy is not doing as well, which it is not doing right now. I totally think Israel has a right to exist and all, but I think that we should be backing them up morally and diplomatically, but I think supporting them monetarily is too far. This will help me outside of the class because I can make a more educated decision and will be able to focus my opinion on where government spending should be going. And that is back into repairing the economy and not to help another country who should be able to support their own economy. I didn't even know that this policy was in use prior to taking this class, and really studying Turkey for a week, I thought that since Turkey had a majority Muslim population, the hijab would be no problem for them. Their policy of banning hijabs really shocked me because in government buildings, which in a majority Muslim country, I just thought they would be second nature. The thing that caused me to change my opinion was learning about it and watching the documentary Turkey on the Edge. As seeing how much the hijab was a symbol of faith and power for women of Turkey, they felt as though banning hijabs in the government and schools was taking away their right to have faith and their right to have their own sense of self. Because of this, I changed my mind and thought the government should have no right to take away religiously affiliated with clothing items. That would be like one of my teachers telling me not to wear a Jewish star because of security reasons. Along with the women of Turkey, I think this rule is bogus. The thing that changed for me was my thinking about the ban in a good way for security to now thinking of the ban as an atrocity to religious freedom in a secular state. This will help me to look at things through the eyes of people who have to deal with it every day, instead of looking through my own eyes on the ban of hijabs. This documentary helped me to see what all women dealing with it go through every day, and I will always try to put myself in another person's shoes. All I knew about the Six-Day War before I started this class was that it had something to do with Israel and the other Middle Eastern countries. Also, I knew that the U.S. helped them, but other than that, I didn't really know anything. The new information that helped me understand the 6-Day War was all of the information about the war about what the war showed to the world. So in the 6-Day War, I learned about Egypt and Syria attacking Israel, and Israel was expected to lose, but they won after just 6 days. This showed the rest of the world that Israel was not to be taken lightly, and it truly had some military power. This changed my understanding by giving me some, so I basically went from not knowing anything to knowing a lot. This will help me in the outside world because I now understand where some of the animosity towards Israel comes from. It is just like somebody beats you in a game and you want to get them back. That is what I think happened in the 6-Day War. Israel won, and then the other countries got mad because they lost. So this helps me to understand more where some of the tension in the Middle East comes from. When I started this class, I did not know a lot about the Arab Spring. I knew that there was a series of uprisings in the Middle East in the past months and years, and this class gave me a lot of information and made me think about them in a whole new light. It taught me that the reasons for the uprisings, such as government corruption and manipulating supposedly democratic elections, and also implementing Islam in a secular country. This puts the protests in a whole new light for me. I now think of them as a necessary thing to change the country to make the country what the people want it to be. This information will help me outside of class by allowing me to sympathize with those people who are dealing with this political unrest and to really understand the problems that are plaguing their country, and also the problems it causes for the people in the country. All I knew about the Syrian civil war before I started the class was that it began as a part of the Arab Spring revolutions, but I had no idea how severe it had gotten. I did not really think of it as a civil war before I began. I just thought of it as a longer protest than the others, and that it would be the same as them and end in either success or failure. But this war is different, and I know that now. The change in understanding that I went through was caused by learning of how the government is using weapons against the Syrian people, and how they are causing a lot of health problems inside a healthcare system that is failing miserably, and putting innocent civilians in true and life-threatening danger. This caused a shift in my understanding from thinking of this as a small issue to understanding this war is a major issue that needs to be dealt with now. This will help me outside of class to take everything seriously and to listen the first time when someone tells me a major event is happening, not to doubt it, because this is truly a war. Prior to taking modern Middle East, one might think that Islam is a religion based off of fighting. This sense of knowledge about what is untrue stems from the growing up in the United States, where since 9/11 there has been so much of a bad shadow cast on Islam because of a small portion of followers involved in terrorist attacks. Also associated with Islam is that the stereotype that all Islamic people are jihadists. Whilst enrolled in this course, I read various excerpts about Islam, and one really struck me was by John Hyatt, named "What is Jihad?" This struck me because in the article he defines jihad and the several different types. There's jihad of the heart, jihad of the tongue, and jihad of the hand. This made me reconsider my held belief that jihad was solely a war against the West. In fact, this made me realize that we could not be farther from the truth. But jihad was actually about a struggle to be moral and struggling to keep a good relationship with God. Another article defines jihad as the struggle, which I now understand makes it able to be used in many different ways. This changing in my understanding of Islam was pretty much centered on the real portrait of Islam and the fact that Islam is not a terrorist organization. It is a religion that, in fact, is very similar to Christianity and Judaism. Also, my change in understanding was on the definition of jihad, which I now know can be used in many different ways, and it has a deeper meaning that allows people to connect with their religion. These changes in my beliefs are not just useful in the academic world, where it is good to be unbiased. My change in understanding helped me to be unbiased in the world. These new ideas will help me to not pass judgment on Islamic people, to get to know the person underneath their religion before I judge what type of person they're going to be. The religion I grew up in. As a conservative Jew growing up, I learned the foundation of my religion, and I learned about how it interacted with other religions, so I had a pretty good handle on Judaism. One thing that caused me to reconsider my ideas about Judaism was the question of who actually had the right to the ancient homeland of the Jewish people. While I was doing research for discussions, I came across a timeline of Jerusalem, which really helped me to change my ideas about who had the right to Jerusalem. It showed me that the Jewish people left Israel for a long time, and in this time, the Arab people had come to live there. From about 70 CE to the early 20th century, the Jewish people were not a majority in Israel. This made me think that instead of the Jewish people, the Arab people might have the right to Jerusalem. So basically, during the period of this course, I changed my idea of who should have the right to Jerusalem from Jewish people to Arab people. This change in my ideas will help me outside the course because instead of just believing what I've always been taught going through Hebrew school, that Jews have the right to Jerusalem, I now have my own decision, and it has allowed me to challenge what I have always been taught and make my own decisions of things instead of just following blindly because a teacher told me. Before this class began, I thought that Christianity did not really have anything to do with the Middle East because you rarely hear about Christianity causing problems with the other religions in the area. I learned that Christianity is tied to the Middle East because it is one of the 3 Abrahamic religions. These 3 religions share a common foundation out of the Old Testament. I also learned that Christianity has a claim to Jerusalem as well. This new change in my idea of Christianity's tie changed what I thought, showing me how Christians call Jerusalem a holy land too. The change that happened for me was not thinking Christianity was involved in the Middle East to realizing it was. I used the book The 100, a ranking of the most influential people, to learn about Jesus and Christianity's claim to Jerusalem. This change will help me to think about everyone who has a claim to something before I make my own decision about who I think should get it. And I'll now consider all sides, no matter how small the claim may be. Overall, just taking this class was a really good experience for me because I got to delve deeper into my passion of the Middle East and really, truly learn what I had always wanted to, and that was everything about the Middle East that's possible. I wanted to learn how the countries interacted with each other and all the different countries that were there, and I truly did. This was a really good experience.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you for being. I'll run to the background.